elements. There is one dominating factor that we are seeing as playing sort of an integral role, like in this process, and that's clearly price.
Hi everyone. For today's episode of Retention Zone, the video podcast focus on subscription and retention for streaming video. I have the pleasure to have my ex-colleague and friend, Marco Lorenzi. Hi, Marco.
Ciao, Carlo. Hi. And hi, everyone.
So tell me a bit about what you do now and what you do with Simplestream and your background in the industry.
Okay, well, I've been at Simplestream for over 2.5 years now. I head up the marketing function there. Obviously, Carlo, we had a chance to meet in my previous spell, so my previous professional experience at Delta Tray. The company Simplestream is a tech provider of video delivery services. We work with a variety of clients, mostly broadcasters and content owners. We provide streaming solutions, OTT infrastructures, which we simplify. That comes a little bit from the name of the company, Simplestream. We simplify the infrastructure, we simplify the complexity of streaming services, and we provide these software as a service out-of-the-box solution. My background is in sports. I am an avid football fan. And the team that stole my heart when I was little is Calcio Padova, which I was able to enjoy a couple of seasons in Serie A, Serie B, Serie C, also a bankruptcy that took us back to semi-professional levels.
So bankruptcy is a good segue, hopefully not, for my first question, which is about your view or monetization in streaming. What do you think about the monetization model that are now basically in this phase? Everybody's talking about AVOD, SVOD, hybrid, fast. Give me a quick overview of that area.
Yes, that's a really interesting point. Obviously, the word I use to describe a situation related to a football club is particularly harsh, but we are in times where consumers' budgets are clearly shrinking. We are in time of cost of living crisis, and households are investing less and less money potentially, or they are supposed to invest less and less money on subscription services for streaming and for video consumption. Trends are a little bit all over the place as far as I'm able to analyze them. There are different acronyms in the industry. There is SVOD, there is TVOD, there is BVOD, hybrid models, and obviously there is the advertising element that became prominent yet again. It's a little bit of a circle back to what we were used to, like a more relaxed, if you like, linear distribution of content with advertising, kind of freeing the user from the weight of having to pay for multiple services on a monthly basis or on an annual basis. I think, in a small set of words, I think advertising is here to stay again, and so creating that hybrid solution is key for operators in order to keep trying to open up to new monetization revenues, of course, and keep their services profitable. There is a lot of competition. It's quite fierce, like competition, like for eyeballs these days. There are plenty of services around. Some are free to access. Some have still like a sort of a barrier, like in terms of a minimum contribution in terms of subscription. But what I see at the moment is a sort of more hybrid spectrum where operators are trying to introduce new elements to their own services in order to A, make their services profitable, and B, in order to retain their own users, because that becomes like the real problem. A platform with no audience doesn't have a meaning to exist anymore.
Once we solve, and we haven't for live sport yet, but the video streaming part, the discovery, the consumption, which is still, I think, not completely satisfactory in some cases, but in theory, we should know how to do it. Clearly, the subscription side and the monetization side, so payments, customer service, everything connected to that, so the full customer journey becomes crucial. And in marketing, in direct-to-consumer marketing term, the funnel that has obviously acquisition, conversion, very classical terms, and retention is becoming crucial. my view is that there has been an underestimation. That's why I do retention zone, a kind of an underestimation of the retention part, because everybody was just trying to grow. You're at the beginning, you want to grow, but grow is the combination of what you add and what you remove.
So, very interesting question and very interesting point. I think, so from our perspective as Simplestream, we work with mostly tier 2, tier 3 operators going D2C with their own offerings. So I think like there is potentially a challenge already at the beginning of that process, which is how to acquire an audience even before you can think about the strategy to retain that audience. So I would probably avoid that sort of step. In general, when it comes to retention, I see it as a combination of elements. There is one dominating factor that we are seeing as playing sort of an integral role, like in this process, and that's clearly price. And pricing is one of the driving elements that can inform the decision for a user, for a consumer, to stay or to go. So that is fundamentally the sort of the tipping point. So combined to this, obviously there is everything else. There is content, the quality of content that's on offer. There is the technology. So is the service stable? How can you make the most of your service? So when there is like a robust set of analytics tool that can be leveraged to analyze customer data and to map out the user journey, that obviously helps operators to build that knowledge about the audience and understand when and where these audiences can be tapped into in order to be convinced to stay and potentially not to go. So obviously there is a distinction between the big players. I'm talking about the Netflix, the Amazon Prime, the Apple TV, Disney. They all have different models. Like Netflix focuses mostly on original content. They started these lower priced, let's say, tier with which is basically like an AVOD service, like with advertising added to the programming. Amazon Prime works more like as an aggregator of different services. There's not only video, there are delivery services. Obviously, there is music, there are audiobooks, and so on. Apple and, for instance, Paramount Plus in the US thrived in the past quarter because of the addition of sport catalogs. And now Apple TV, on the back of the deal with Major League Soccer from last year, they are capitalizing on that. And I think, like, I read some stats from a report published by Kantar a few weeks ago, and stats say that 19% of new subscribers were convinced to join these SVOD, traditionally SVOD services, because of the interest in live sports. So it's a matter of finding the right balance for the right audience, but clearly, A, you cannot do that without data, and B, there needs to be continuous research and development, and there needs to be a fan-centric, frictionless experience, because at the first glitch, as a user, I myself would leave a service because I simply don't have time to spend just toying around with a tool.
So I want to play a little game, or if you want, a model, streaming model game. Imagine, as we always have been more in the vendor side, I see, these two layers. One is the potential client group, which is, as you started describing, big tech, big media, the way I see it. If you want sport verticals, just because we are in sport, otherwise they're not that relevant compared to the other two. And then everybody else, which normally is what we call owned and operated. So for the ecosystem of vendors, this is what they can sell into, right? So big tech, I'm not saying that it's not a market for vendors, because clearly they don't do everything themselves, but it's a specific market, right, with big tech. Big media, more and more, I see them taking control, because the platform that vendors like everybody else of us can provide is something that enable what they're doing, but they want more control. Sport vertical like DAZN or the NBA or the NFL I've compared to big media, maybe it's a bit smaller operation, doesn't maybe being a bit bigger, even if it's on the media side, but it's specific to sport. And then everybody else, it's kind of what you describe as tier 2, tier 3, or even no, it could be tier 0. I mean, I'm thinking Bein just relaunch the technology behind Todd with Kling. So as vendors, I see the SaaS vendors, I see that are normally trying to do a portion of the ecosystem, because it's a very complex ecosystem to provide. And then I see, the solution provider and the end-to-end solution provider. Long question. How do you see this market evolving, or how do you see the current state and evolving? If you agree with the framework.
Absolutely, and I think it's pretty transparent and it's pretty clear to the eyes of experts and non-experts, like working on the sidelines. Let's say I see two processes being well underway. From one end, there is what I just partially described, like earlier on in this chat, Carlo, and it's content aggregation. So it's unrealistic to think that every single entity, every single brand might have been a thought that we had about like 7-8 years ago, like on every single property going D2C with their own offering. It's probably a little bit unrealistic. There would be so much fragmentation, like that it's not sustainable for the market, simply put, and for the reasons I tried to explain like earlier on. So from a content perspective, we are witnessing like a process of progressive aggregation. Then I don't know what will happen in 10 years' time again, but this is what I'm seeing right now. From a technological sort of angle instead, I think fragmentation is the keyword. And I could see even big players, even big tech, even big media, as you described, outsourcing part of their own services to different companies. There is a plethora of tech vendors now specialized in niche elements of the entire tech stack. And the tech stack for OTT, for streaming, is huge. It's limitless, almost limitless. So what I see is these two processes running on parallel tracks, and at some point there needs to be some sort of convergence for that. From the perspective of someone who operates in a SaaS, B2B, and out-of-the-box sort of solution provider such as Simplestream, I think it's really important for vendors like to become system integrators as opposed to claiming to be doing end-to-end. Everyone in the industry does that. Everyone claims, yeah, we can do end-to-end. Everyone can, fundamentally. But how much of that end-to-end is actually plugged in from a more sort of bulletproof solution that comes from a provider specialized uniquely in something else? And it could be payment gateways, it could be ad insertion, it could be CDN balancing, it could be analytics tools. So there is a variety of elements that are absolutely key to the success of owned and operated OTT services. And I think like I can say like that end-to-end is not a thing anymore, and it will be even less so for even like big players going ahead.
I think I agree, and I love the content aggregation technology fragmentation model. I will copy it, maybe mention you, obviously. But I agree. So it's more about who integrate, because in the end, we both said it's a very complex technology ecosystem. Someone has to integrate. It can be the client, it can be a separate, isolated integrator that just does the integration. It can be a company that integrate partners. But that's when you say end-to-end is I'm also doing the integration. That's what end-to-end really means. Unless you really build a completely custom-built system that does everything, which maybe some are still trying to do, but yeah, it has limits, I would say. But okay, so I think thank you. It was very good conversation, Marco. Hope to see you at some of the events in the coming months. And otherwise, Forza Padova.
Sempre, always. Thank you, Carlo.
Ciao, Marco.
Thank you for having me.
Ciao.
See you later.